welcome to Cryptid Wilderness Research. My name is Daniel Becker in Anchorage, Alaska. Joining me, as always, is my fellow host in Quincy, Washington, Matt Slater.
Hello.
Tonight, back with us, continuing first series with us, is our researcher consultant for our show, as well as cryptid and paranormal investigator from paranormal-empowerment.com. Robin, thank you so much for being back with us. You've been so good to us. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you guys because you're both tremendous and I just love this show. So it's a blessing. And I thank you for having me back so much.
Thank you very much. And we love you. So let's get started. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Slater in Quincy, Washington. Go ahead.
All right, Robin. My question tonight, in regards to Sasquatch, what would you say would be one of the most meaningful or important interactions that you've had with a Sasquatch?
I think I've had a few. I can't say that there's any one that is the best ever. I had a female that showed up in my backyard and actually brought me a baby to see.
Wow.
I never did try to touch the baby at all. I felt it was a test. And I think it actually was, because right after it happened, like everything just started moving forward even more. Excuse me. But she brought her into the it was a little boy, brought it into the backyard. It was very small. And in fact, it was small enough where she would take it to the trees and it would go from the ground, climb up 3 foot, and then it would get tired. And then it would go back down and go to the next tree, go up 3 foot and back down. It only would make it up about 3 foot before it would poop out and it would have to go back down. But I was very blessed. I got very close to it and was able to watch it. And she was tremendous with me. And I had one that came up and I was actually outside with at night that came up and he put his hand on my arm, almost on my elbow. And I could feel his hair. He had relatively long hair. He was absolutely incredible. And his hair, brushed over on my wrist and my arm. And I looked up and I saw these eyes. And for people that have looked them in the eyes, they are the most mesmerizing thing you will ever see in your life. You can't stop looking. You just can't. So that to me was really significant. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And I've had them where if I have my bed by my window, I leave my windows open a lot. They would put their hand in and play with my hair at night. And then I would wake up and I would have leaves and mud and everything in my hair when I woke up. But, it's really special. I fell off the edge of this. It was only about 4.5, 5 foot tall, like a dirt wall. And the ground gave way and I went to fall. I would have landed on my ankle, which would have broke it as hard as I fell. And I literally felt something grab me by the waist and pick me up. And I was very gently sat about 5 foot over on the ground.
Wow.
I never saw anything. The person that was with me, she said, I don't know what that was. She said, I didn't see what did it. I didn't see anything other than you were going down on your ankle and all of a sudden something picked you up and literally picked you up, moved you sideways and sat you down on the ground very gently, like 5 foot over. But I've been very blessed. I would go out with a certain group at night about 2 o'clock in the morning. I did this for years and I would literally go out and sit with them. And, it's every time you interact, every time you have the physical contact, it's like it's the first time. And I'm very blessed right now that some of the groups that I'm working with, where I've always had it on an astral level and as a mindspeak level, and some physical level, obviously. But right now it seems to be, I'm doing a lot more in the physical. I'm still doing the astral. I'm still doing the mindspeak all over the place with them. But I'm getting a lot more actual physical contact where, you're right there, they're standing in front of you. And it's such a blessing. It really is.
It sounds very special.
But because they're higher frequency and higher energy, their emotions are much stronger than ours. They can do a projection where they take the energy within their body, they take their intent, they take their consciousness, and they take those emotions, and they can project it on you. So when they do what I call, I don't know what anybody else calls it, I call it the love bubble, because they literally will project that emotion of love on you. It is literally the most incredible love you've ever felt. They love at a much deeper and harder level than we do. Like, we can't even comprehend it. Most people that actually get that, it'll make them cry. It literally makes you cry, because it's such a deep and pure love, you can't even comprehend it. So I've just been really blessed with them. I mean, it doesn't mean I haven't ran into some crabby ones. I've dealt with those as well. But, the good contact that I have, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's very humbling, to say the very least.
It sounds incredible. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So when you had the experience with seeing the baby, was that in Michigan or was that in the Carolinas?
That was in Michigan. I had so much activity in Michigan. I've continued activity here in South Carolina, but I think if I had to choose between what I've had in South Carolina and Michigan, it's Michigan hands down. That group, and I do have some of them that did follow me here, but that particular group in Michigan was one of the biggest blessings in my life. And I have two groups now that I'm interacting with that are almost the same way. So it's like I'm just getting it just warms my heart, because I knew when I was interacting with the first group in Michigan, it would probably never happen again. And now here I am, and I'm presented with two more groups that are allowing that kind of interaction. I'm so blessed. I'm humbled. I'm blown away at it. It's incredible. But the ones in Michigan, the week after we moved in there, started showing themselves. And then I kept my patterns the same every day. I did that because it was for their comfort, not mine. I wanted them to know that they could know where I was going to be at any given time, and then they could move their selves around it and create their own routine around me. They like to be in control. So it does work better if they have that predictability from you. And so I would walk a certain path every day, and I would talk to them, and I'd be like, hi guys, what are you doing? I don't have to see you. It's okay. Because I've always mind spoke. So I'd talk to them anyway. And one day I heard laughter, and then I walked down my path I went on, and there's a tree across it. I said, very funny, guys. This is me laughing at you, and I'm walking around the tree. Ha, ha, ha. So I went to go do the second loop, and they had moved the tree. And the tree was gone. And I was like, okay. So now we're playing a game. And it just got to be a daily thing where 2 and 3 times a day, they knew what to expect, where I was going to be. And they just created their own little patterns around me. And it worked. And then it was, okay, we're going to try something else. And I would go to put food out for them, which I don't, everybody, when they do it on a regular basis, if you don't have a really good group, it could be dangerous. Like, putting it out occasionally is okay. I, at that time, had nobody to tell me that. I was doing everything by myself. Nobody to, say, hey, that's not a good idea. And so I was putting it out every day, and I would make all these, not really puzzles, but various things that they would have to undo in order to get to it. And they did it every time. And I had taken apples, and I would put them in the crevices of the trees, like where the branches would V out. So it looked like they were hanging there, but I was buying apples and doing that. I did that for 3 years, and they took them every single time. And we had fruit trees at the back of the property, and I never even knew it. And they finally had apples on it. And I went back there one year, and I'm like, you guys are con artists. Like, I'm buying apples every week. Look at all these apples back here. I said, I'm not buying you any more apples. So I bought other things and fed them. I went out the very next day after I had said that to them. All the apples were off the trees in the back. And I thought, they surely couldn't have taken all those apples. Not only did they take those apples, they put them in the crevices of all the trees, just like I used to do for them. It was incredible. I took a million pictures of it. But that was just that relationship we had. I lived there from 2009 until 2015. And it got to where they just walked around uncloaked. They no longer felt that they had to cloak. I mean, there was a time when they would, but then they would uncloak within 8 to 10 feet from me. And I'd see the children. They'd bring the kids, or they would, because I do remote viewing, they would say, we're hunting, watch the babies. Well, I knew that meant not to go to the babies, but I knew where they would put them. They had taken and put logs in, like this big rectangular thing that looked like a giant playpen. And that's where the babies were. And it was only probably not even 100 feet from my front door. So I could hear them, and, I knew they were over there. And so they would hunt or whatever, and that's where all the babies would be. And so I wouldn't allow my kids to go out and play during that time or anything else, so that they always felt safe. My kids interacted with them. My grandchildren interacted with them. I mean, it was just a time that, I'm hoping, and it looks like we may have that kind of interaction again with some of the other groups I'm working with in various places that people have around them. But it was just magnificent. I'll be forever blessed by that. And I remember when it was happening, thinking to myself, this will never happen for me again. And here I am. I've got, a couple of different states that I'm getting that kind of interaction. So I'm very fortunate. But they were just incredible. They would come up cloaked behind me, and then I would feel a hand be placed on my shoulder. And then a few minutes after that, they would play. They liked my hair because my hair is frizzy. I'm like a Yeti. And they would pet my hair. And then when I would go out at night, I'd see them standing in the tree lines, and I would see their legs sticking out or an arm sticking out or what have you. But it was common to see them walk around. I looked out in the yard one day, and there was a black child that went across. And my son that day had a black jacket, black jeans on, and a black shirt. And it was really cold out. And I just half-heartedly glanced and saw this child that went across all covered in black fur. Never thought, or hair, I'm sorry, they don't have fur. And I never thought to myself, that's a Sasquatch child. I thought it was my son. And I'm like hollering out the window at him, get in here. It's too cold. You just got over bronchitis. I don't want you outside. And he walked out of his bedroom and he said, why are you yelling at me? I'm in here. And I was like, oh my God, that's really what it was, But my kids were used to them looking in the windows. My son, when he had bronchitis, he was in the house and he was sick. And I had some people now I didn't allow a lot of people there, only certain researchers there. And there were 3 of them that were coming. And my son was doing better. So I let them come. They were going to stay at a hotel because he was sick. And I told him, I said, do you want me to stay in here with you? And he's like, Mom, you're going to be on the property. I'm fine. I said, okay. So he was laying. I said, you can go in my room, watch TV, relax. You'll be just fine. He's like, okay. So he's in there. I said, you've got your cell phone. I'm not leaving the property. It's only 10 acres. Just give me a call if you want me to come in. I get a phone call from him and he said, were you just here? And I said, no. And he said, I think one of the Bigfoots was in the house. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, one that I'm very, very close to. And he said, and he was all white. And he said, I heard the front door open. I thought it was you. He said, I came out of the room. And when I did, I saw this large figure that was it looked hairy and white. And then he was going out the door and the door shut and there were white rocks left there for my son. So I asked, I was mind speaking with him. I said, what happened? Are you okay? And he's like, yeah. He said, I was making sure that, Caleb was okay. And I thought, how kind. I mean, they were tremendous. We had our furnace went out one night. And we had to have a repairman come at 11, 12 o'clock at night to fix it. It was the dead of winter in Michigan. And I thought this is going to go over like a lead balloon. And so the kids were in keeping the furnace man busy while I was standing out in the woods trying to keep them from tearing his truck apart. Best security team ever. And I still get that here. So, I mean, it's great. I get into too much trouble and it's nice to know there's backup not too far away.
So where you lived in Michigan when you had your encounters with these particular families, were you near a national forest? Were you just near state forest?
Within the Manistee National Forest, which in Michigan, the Manistee National Forest is like 900 miles or 9,000 miles. It's massive. It goes from one part of the state all the way up through the UP. So it's absolutely enormous. And where I was at, I was not even a mile from town, but it was a very small town, and there were people, everybody I lived on a private drive, but it was all sectioned out into 10-acre lots. And they didn't live on my property. I knew where they lived. I knew exactly where they lived, and it was in a protected area that nobody could get to, thankfully. And they would come to my place and they would hang out. They would be there most of the day, and then they would leave for a while, and then they would show back up at night. My kids would be watching TV and they'd look outside, and my boys would constantly tell me, there's these figures out back that are huge, and they're sitting Indian style in the backyard, and they would sit there almost like they're watching a drive-in movie, because the kids they all had cable in their room, and they would watch through the windows all the colors and all the things dancing around on the screen, and you'd look out in the backyard and there would be at least 3 figures just sitting back there.
Watching TV.
Yeah.
So,
My
so
daughter
you,
did it. She wanted the blackout curtains because she's like, every time I look out the window, they're looking back in.
so you had mentioned earlier that some of these Sasquatch actually ended up following you to the Carolinas.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So,
Yeah.
so uh, how did those Sasquatch clans or families? I know different researchers have different terms for it. How was that interaction between the Michigan Sasquatch and the Carolina Sasquatch when that all
Well,
meshed together?
yeah, they they don't argue and they don't fight. I have about 3 or 4 clans that actually visit this property. And each one of the clans, I'm not noticing a lot of them interacting with each other, but they're sharing the space. I also have dogmen that come here frequently. I don't have a problem with dogmen. Have I ever dealt with a bad one? Yes, I have. The ones around me have been very good. They've actually been very helpful to me. And I'm very grateful that they're around. The ones here will share space. They may not be singing kumbaya with each other at the campfire, but they're sharing space and getting along lovely. I have a female whose mate is actually the leader of a clan here, and their son has been here since I've been here. He was just a little guy. He's not little anymore. I got some pictures of him. He's not little anymore, but he's been wonderful to watch grow up. I've been here 6 years now. I'm just getting ready to transition to another state, and my time here is done. But they've gotten along well. Like I said, I don't catch them like when they're speaking or when they're hanging outside my window, which they do a lot of the times. I don't see them doing a lot of interacting with each individual clan to clan. I know they do talk according to them. They're aware of each other. They get along just like you would your neighbor. You're not going to be with your neighbors every single day, but you get along. And they've been tolerant of each other. I know when I move, there is a little bit of trepidation as far as the ones that came from Michigan here going there.
And I was
Because,
actually gonna
yeah,
follow up with that
the
question.
clan
Are
here,
they aware that you're going?
they are. I asked if they were going to come, and they said, no, we're not allowed there. And I said, if I can get permission for you to be there, will you come? And they say, we will be nearby. We're not leaving you. We will be nearby. We won't join that clan, which they didn't join the clans here. Like they didn't merge any clans. There's 3 or 4 of them that come in and out of this property. So, and I have a pretty good idea where they live, although I've never gone. I've been to where they actually live, the ones in Michigan. And I was very blessed to be able to do that. These little teepees everybody sees and says this is where they live. I just think that's adorable because that's not how that works. Those are a temporary shelter. They are something that is an energetic field where they can portal in and out of. They have a great many reasons to have these temporary shelters. Reality of it is, from what I was shown, and all of them are different. There may be some that have something more primitive like that. The ones I was shown were the size of a 2.5 car garage. They were built 4 foot off the ground. There was woven branches on the sides and on the top, and in the pouring rain, which it was pouring down rain when they showed it to me, it was bone dry. And underneath of it is nothing but sticks and rock and whatever to get it off the ground so they're not in those. And that was in Michigan. That way it protected them from the cold temperatures of the ground. It was watertight. The thing that was so amazing to me was there was 8, I call them pods because that's what they looked like. There were 8 pods, and the back of the pods all faced in the middle so that the openings faced out and they went in a circle. There was no way anybody could sneak up on those pods. It would have been impossible. And they were very well hidden. It was not accessible to us. It was the way I got into was through a portal, to be honest with you. And I could hear what was going on the outside of it. But they do have a way, and there's a lot of controversy on this, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. They have a way of creating an illusion where you think something is one way and it's really not. I watched one, not even an eighth of a mile up the road from my house, walk down a little hill, cross the road right in front of my car, and this opening appeared in the rock wall there, and he walked into that, and then it closed, and it looked just like the rock wall again. And I've seen them do that with a wave of the hand over the ground, and this huge opening opens and they jump right down in it, and then it closes. And I've had a lot of people come to me that have witnessed the same thing. It's not, it's not just me. I've had things like that happen when I've had people with me. But when you ask them about it, they create the illusion of what they want you to think it is so that you don't bother it.
That's pretty amazing. They have such command over the natural world.
Oh, yes.
To be able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they can take what is basically an illusion and make it become reality. They have that capabilities to manifest in their mind what they want through the collective consciousness, which is where we all are striving to be at, and are getting there very quickly thanks to the energy shifts. You use your collective consciousness through the higher frequency and the energy, but they work as a collective, and the consciousness is in control of everything. Whether it's us or them, it's in control. And they use that collective consciousness to manifest what they want, and then they turn that illusion into the reality.
So you mentioned that they said that they don't have permission to go there. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, when you have a clan that wants to move to an area that's already a territory of another one, they're going to ask permission to either join that clan or can they live alongside that clan. The clan that is closest to where I'll be staying is in a state area, and I can go into it whenever I want, and I interact with them there. I mean, some of them follow me back, but they have that area. My group from Michigan, when they asked about it, they said they never asked. They just said that they didn't feel it would be right to merge with that clan. They want to be friends. They get along fine. They don't want to merge with that clan. They don't want to become part of that clan. They want to keep their own clan. So they just said that we don't have permission to be part of that clan. That's not what we want. We want to stay independent in our own clan. So we will move where you're at alongside of them. So they'll still be there. They'll still be there, and the mindspeak will never stop. I still get it from the ones in Russia from when I did this conference in Siberia back in 2011. So, the thing about the mindspeak, it transcends time and space. There is no space when you're doing mindspeak because it's through the collective consciousness. So it doesn't matter where you're at. When you speak to them, it's like they're standing right in front of you.
So mindspeak has always been a big topic of conversation among Bigfoot researchers. A lot of opinions out there, a lot of experiences out there. So when you first started to do that, or we first realized that you had that ability, what was that like? What was your first experience with that?
Well, for me, it was a little bit different because I was so small. Um, when I started talking, I was already mind speaking. Like, honest to God, I did not know that not everybody could. I mean, that's how far back it went for me. That was just always part of who I was. I can remember being 2 and 3 years old. Why I have memories that far back, I have no idea. And we had a white cat that was a stray that I adopted. And I can remember mind speaking with the cat. And when I started talking, my mom said, I always talked about how before I could talk, they would talk to me in my head. So how far back it goes, honestly, I can't tell you. I just know that there's never been a time in my life that I couldn't. It was always part of who I was. I can remember being 3 and 4 years old and seeing the Sasquatch in the backyard or looking through the window or whatever I did. They were always there. For me, it was different than a lot of people. It doesn't make it a better experience. It just makes it my experience. I never knew that not everybody had them around. I didn't know that everybody didn't have dogmen around. I didn't know that when you're 4 years old and get abducted by the aliens and you're on a craft, that wasn't something that everybody did. I mean, imagine my shock to find out not everybody did these things.
Yeah.
To me, that was my normal. There was never any other normal for me but that. There hasn't been since. My normal is very abnormal. I would never trade it. You know, I've always been able to see a part of the world that other people may or may not. But I honestly, I never knew that it was not something that everybody had around them. So I'm kind of biased on it. You know, I work with people. I've always worked with people on this stuff my whole life. I have, you know, now of course I have the business as well, but I teach people to mind speak. And most of it, we're all already mind speaking. Everybody is capable of it. It's not like it's a big skill. It's recognizing that it's mind speak because you get it in ways that are not predominantly what you would think of as telepathy or mind speak. But I talk to these people and they're like, well, when did you really notice that? And I'm like, I never didn't notice it because it was just part of my soul. That was part of who I was. Like I didn't know. When I found out people couldn't do it, I was like, oh, you can do this. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Here, do this, this, and this. And then I'd get them going as well. It is harder to mind speak with people, but not with all people. Some people it's very easy to mind speak with, and it depends on the frequency of that person. If the frequency is high enough within both parties, you can do it fluidly between yourselves. When you mind speak, if your frequency isn't high enough and you try to mind speak, whether it's been with one of the cryptids, an ET, a dimensional, an elemental, or whatever, even a pet, if the one you're talking to has a high enough frequency, they're going to get it. It's not necessary that it's a two-way street. So that's why I really encourage the people that I work with, like when I help try to get them contact, to go out there, talk in your mind, because they're going to hear that before they're going to verbally hear it. And mind speak works much quicker. There's a disconnect when it goes into your brain and filters out into your mouth. There's a disconnect when you're reading energy. Your body will react and feel that energy before your brain ever will. So there's that disconnect and that lag time from when your body's feeling it before your mouth verbalizes it and your brain tells your mouth to verbalize it. So people will be like, I was fine, and then all of a sudden I felt this. I have no idea why. Your body's reading the energy because your body picks up the energy before your brain will or ever will.
So can all Sasquatch mind speak, or is that ability only limited to some?
No, they all can, but here's the thing about it. And the best analysis I think that I can provide for people to understand is we have our people, we also have Amish people. And this is not a cut down to that. So please don't anybody take it that way. I have the utmost respect for them and the way of life that they've chosen. But with some of the sectors of Amish, they don't use electricity. Okay. They grow up not even knowing, a lot of them, that it exists because they aren't, it's not put to them, and they don't, there's a lot of things that we per se may do that because they're not raised in it, they don't know. The same thing happens with the Sasquatch. They're all born being able to cloak and being able to mind speak. And they're all very fluent in the mind speak. And primarily they will do that before even the verbal. But you have certain clans that don't want the paranormal abilities. Okay. The paranormal abilities, because you have to have a higher frequency to do it, it also creates a glow, if you will, on a paranormal spectrum that you and I may not see. I mean, I can because my frequency is high enough, and they've taught me how to do it. Anybody can. If I can do it, a chimp can do it. But if you don't know how to, you don't see it. But other paranormal beings do. So a lot of them go old school, and they're like, we're not going to use the paranormal abilities, which means we're not going to use the portals. We're not going to cloak. We're not going to shimmer. We're not going to levitate. We're not going to create energy balls. We're not going to do all of these amazing things that they can do. We're not going to shapeshift. We're not going to do all of these things. We're going to keep it real. We're just going to stay in the present. We're going to stay in that dimension. They all do mind speak. But again, if they haven't been taught about the other abilities, they grow up not knowing they have them. It's like with our people, we all are capable of mind speak. We all have a certain basis of ability. Some of us have more than others. But we can all do the energy work, which is what I teach. Everybody can. You may have an ability for energy work that will get you doing more things than the normal person, but we can all do the basics of it. If we're not taught, if we don't know it exists, how do we know we can do it? And it's pretty much the same with them. I've worked with some clans that strictly stay in the physical. Unfortunately, with that comes a shorter lifespan. where it's more the lifespan that we per se would have, because inside the portal is a high frequency and a high energy, which also protects them from diseases and illnesses. And because their frequency has to be high enough to travel through the portals, it gives them a longevity to their life. So they end up living 200 to 400 years old. Certain members of the clan, depending on the high frequency of them, can live and be 900 years old, 1,000 years old. It just transcends according to the strength of that frequency. And just for the record, I learned all this from them. I didn't get it out of a book. I didn't go to a guru and say, teach me what you know. I learned them from the source itself. The Dogmen, the Sasquatch, the cat people, the ETs. I mean, you name it. If it's contacted me, they teach me things.
So we often hear mindspeak associated with specifically Sasquatch. What about mindspeak with other cryptids? And I'll specifically ask about Dogman, for example. Are dogmen more behaviorally aggressive or less people friendly, less intelligent? They seem to have that type of reputation. But what is your take on it?
I think they're more stoic. They guard the woods. They're the police of the forest. But the other thing that I've noticed with the Dogmen is there's different ways that the Dogmen came to be. And we do know, obviously, there's canine in them. The DNA study is not back yet. We're still feverishly working on it and hoping to get it done soon. But they've got the dog head. Okay, so we know there's got to be some form of a canine in there somewhere. But what I've noticed, because I've seen several different kinds, and everybody's like, oh, there's all these variants. No, there's different kinds. Okay, if your mom and dad were blonde hair and blue eyes, you're probably going to have the blonde hair and blue eyes. Great. But if your dad was like dark hair, dark eyes, your mom was blonde and blue, it could be either way that you would, genetically you would be able to match. It seems to be, from what I've noticed, and I don't have anything to base this on. I'm anxiously, like everybody else, waiting for the DNA to come back. What I'm picking up is that depending on what kind of canine is used when these hybrids are created is what you're going to get. And I think that has a lot to do with the aggression. I truly do. Also, the ones that the government created were trained killers. That's what they were for. They're trained to hunt. They're trained to kill because they were going to be used for the military forces. They are obedient. They know what's being done. I know of certain people within the government that have told me they have chips in them so that they can control them, with their own little beepers, for lack of a better term. But then you have other ones that have a different shaped head, have a different type thing. They can get really pissy. They don't play games. Now, some of them have a sense of humor, not like a Sasquatch. Sasquatch have a wicked sense of humor. They are hysterically funny at any given time. They like being funny. They like laughter. It raises the frequency. It raises the vibration. I have interacted with some of the Dogmen that have a funny sense of humor, but not at the level of the Sasquatch. They are much more stoic. They are much more regal. They are down to business. If you are coming up on them, you better have a darn good reason to do it. They have a job in mind. They're going to do it. It's like if you have a dog and it's a working breed, whether it's a German Shepherd, a Rottweiler, or anything of that nature, or even, like cattle dogs. They're there for a purpose. They have a job. I have a Pyrenees. My Pyrenees goes and patrols the yard every single day. Nothing's ever been there other than the Sasquatch, and they adore her. She plays with them all the time. But she patrols because that's what's inbred in her to do, is to be that guardian. She's going to be the guardian. I also have Shih Tzus, okay? Lovable, wonderful, warm, loving, the most useless dog on the planet. Impossible to train, don't want to be trained. They are stubborn. They are meant to be a lap dog, and they do it well. And they're the most cuddly, lovable things you've ever had. But they're not going to be the guard dog. Trust me. If that was what was going to keep me safe, I would have been dead a long time ago. But depending what these crosses are crossed with, I think has a lot to do with the attitude. And unfortunately, the ones that the government have created as hybrids and have different forces of have been created more for the violence, in my opinion. They're not something you want to mess with. And they tend to be in various cave systems all over the world. It's not just one.
Interesting.
And I do have, which so did the Sasquatch. Let's be real. Any of the cryptids will be in there. So are the ETs. But I've noticed that people that have come to me and said they've had interaction with them, they walked into a cave and they were there. They did not, the ones I've talked to haven't gotten hurt, but they've been threatened. You will leave. You will not speak of us. You will not do this. You will not do this. You will not do this, or we will find you. They don't play. They're protective in nature, just like any dog is. They're going to protect their families. All cryptids are protective. They all have higher frequency. They have all energy is higher. So all emotions are higher. Okay. They are cocked, loaded, and ready to go at any given time. The Sasquatch tend to be, in my personal opinion, depending on, which ones you run into, a little bit calmer minded. That being said, I think we would be remiss if we didn't realize that the Sasquatch are a human hybrid. It's a fact. I knew it before they ever did the DNA study because they had told me. The DNA study just backed up what they had already said. As with all of us humans, or hairless humans as they call us, we all have different personalities. You have some people that are just aggressive in nature because that's who they are. You have others that are so laid back, it's like you could drop a bomb in their house and they're like, don't worry about it, no problem. And so that has a lot to do with the personality differences. It has a lot to do with where is their location. Are you going way up in the mountains where they obviously have gone to get away from us and now you're chasing them up the mountains to go bother them? Do your research. It's like with LBL. I get asked all the time, will I go to the LBL? Will I go to the LBL? Because a lot of times when I go out, things want to interact with me. But for me to go to the LBL, it's not that I'm fearful of going. I'm not stupid. Okay, I can handle myself. I'll be fine. But the problem is in the LBL, not that there aren't good ones there. There are some, but not as many. But the bad stuff goes there to get away from us. So then we go to the LBL and chase them down. Okay, so who's the problem child? They're not coming and looking for us. We're going and looking for them, and we're going to look for the bad ones because there are people that would take any interaction rather than none. Okay, go for the positive interaction. It will last you your lifetime. It has me. It has many, many people, hundreds of thousands of people that are getting ongoing relationships with these beings their entire life because they're not going into the bad one's territory and poking that bear. And they're doing it on the cryptid's terms. And I can't say that I do it right all the time. Obviously I don't. Nobody's perfect. There's no experts in this. I'm sure not one. I know what I know because I was taught by them, but at the same time, and I do have a lot of abilities that help me in this. But at the same time, I screw up like everybody else does. I'm human. I'm not an expert. Don't claim to be. Never want to be because there isn't one. If somebody tells you they're an expert, just get away from them because
Absolutely.
These things are never going to tell you everything. If they do, it gives up their position, their strength, their force of protection. They are never going to tell us everything. So just don't even think about it because that's not going to go on. And some of the ones that do give us information get punished by their clans for giving us information. So that tells you that as well. But go out in an area where you may see stick structures nearby. Don't go in there. Keep your hands off their stick structures. It's a form of communication between them, and they do some of it for our benefit as well. It's not just decorative. Okay? And there's energy in a lot of those stick structures that you don't need to be playing with because it's at such a high frequency it can do damage. Go make a bonfire. Go sit. You don't have to have a fire. Just go out there and sit near the area. Laugh. Have fun. When you laugh and have fun, it raises your frequency. It raises your energy. That's what they're attracted to. It's like a homing beacon for them. Let them come to you. Let them put themselves in a situation around you where they're comfortable. That's when you get the interaction. That's when you get the friendship. That's when you get the ongoing where it's going to continue. If they don't want you there, they're going to do things to make you leave. Be mindful of that. When they throw tiny pebbles at you, that's just you letting you know they're there. When they get the size of your fists, that's kind of like, okay, you're getting too close. Please back up. You start getting boulders, that means you have now gone into an area that you're either not safe because there could be another predator there, or you're too close to their families, their friends, what they're doing, and they're telling you to get out. People get all upset and they're like, oh, they're so aggressive. They didn't rip your head off. You're still alive. they're giving you a kindness by saying, this is as far as I'm going to let you take this, because now you pushed the boundaries. If they want you dead, I guarantee you there's not any place on heaven and earth that you can go that's going to be safe. You know, so you have to play. If you're going to play with them, if you're going to interact with them, you got to do it within their perimeters. It doesn't always go well. I've had experiences where I've been bluff charged. You know, I've had experiences where I've dealt with some that were trying to kill people. You know, anything can happen to anybody if you come up on the wrong one. But I will be honest and say, I trust them more than I will ever trust our people. Okay, case in point, a month and a half ago, I went to Walmart. All I did was go in to get something for a pet. I got attacked by a man in the lawn and garden section.
Wow.
In Walmart. A physical assault.
Did he live to tell the tale?
Unfortunately, I have a lot of people that are looking for him right now, including some Sasquatch. I was able to get out of there because he kept pushing it and forcing himself on me, and somebody saw it and hollered, and when they hollered at him, I took off. The police came. He was already gone. But, you know, and then the very next day, when I talked to Walmart, they were calling the police. I got out of there. I was so shaken. I just wanted out. And so the next day I went back in to finish getting what I got. And I thought, it's the middle of the day. There's like 1,000 people in there. I mean, I'm okay. I'm shaken, but I'm okay. He was back at the store and followed me and tried to follow me through Walmart. I went to the service desk. They called the police. A report was filed. They've never found this person.
Wow,
but
that's horrible.
Yeah, my point is, I was more at risk with our people than I have ever been with them. Now, I got bluff charged in the lower part of Texas several years ago, and it could have gone horribly wrong. I could have gotten killed. He did not want me. He wanted the children that were with me, and I wasn't going to allow that. So I stood my ground. I got bluff charged. The kids got away. And I got away as well, clearly. But those are not as frequent as what goes on with our people. Seriously. You know, I mean, I'm more fearful of our type of humans than I will ever be of a cryptid. I go out in my backyard in the middle of the night and I'm fine. You know, I also read energies. So if there's anything negative out there, my body knows how to read that energy signature. I'm going to pick it up. And that's why I say, really, if you're going to be in this field, you need to learn how to read the energies, because that will keep you safe. That will help you. It's not a guarantee, but it definitely helps you. The energy work helps you use your own energy and frequency in your body to protect yourself, just like they do with them. They're the ones that started that spree. We can do it too. And it's a big help in being able to interact with them. They really are incredible. And the good ones, there's nothing any better. You know, they kept snakes away from me. They've kept people away from me. I fell off a cliff in Pennsylvania. They saved me from that. I almost died because I got attacked by an ET and I ended up in intensive care. They saved my life. You know, I mean, they do so much good. They really do. But they are not all good. The bad ones, because they're higher frequency and energy, the bad ones are lethal. They are literally lethal. There seems to be nothing in between good and bad. I get a lot of people that contact me and they're like, I'm so traumatized. I said, did they touch you? No. Did you get physically harmed? No, I didn't. I said, what did they do? Well, they yelled at me and waved their arms. Okay. In the military, waving your arms above your head is surrender. Last I knew.
Yeah.
And if they're yelling at you and waving their arms, they're trying to persuade you not to come into that section, whether there be another predator, whether you're now in an area where they don't want you at. They're doing whatever they can to not have to have that physical altercation. The bad ones, that's a little bit different. But the good ones, you know, there are ways to interact. And it's all based on respect. It's all based on your consciousness, your intent, your heart. If you have dark energy, if you have if you're not a kind person, they don't want that around them. It repulses them. That negative energy, that low frequency really is upsetting to them, more so than people realize it, to the point that will make them physically ill. They don't want it around them. They don't want it around their children. So the more upbeat you are, the happier you are, the higher the frequency, the higher the energy, the better chance you will ever have of interacting.
So Robin Haynes from paranormal-empowerment.com Thank you so much for being with us again. We love talking to you. There's just so much to cover, so that's why we appreciate you doing this ongoing series with us.
Yeah,
So,
whenever you guys want.
and so, my esteemed colleague Matt Slater and Quincy Washington, you both got stuff coming up. So, Matt, let's start with you. You just filed a CWR field report just recently. What do you got coming up? What do you got coming up in the future with that stuff?
Well, I just did the Chelan County field report. I'm planning on doing one about Central Washington and why there are not any reported sightings in the whole center of the state. I've got some locations that I'm thinking about going to, and it's not really saying that they're not here. It's just that there are none reported, and that's kind of strange for the national database to have such a huge area with no reports. And then there's also, I want to do another field report after that over on the west side of the state, on the other side of the Cascades, over in Lewis County, which is the hotspot for the state of Washington. It's where St. Helens is. It's where Ape Canyon is and Ape Caves. There's so many reported sightings in that area that I want to go over there and visit some of the sighting locations and just present what those areas are like.
Excellent. You've filed a great report, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with next. Robin Haynes, you've got all kinds of stuff going on from your website to UFO conferences. And I want to say this to viewers who haven't seen our past shows with Robin. Robin not only does the cryptid research and investigations, but she's also on the paranormal side of things having to do with extraterrestrials and other psychic phenomenon. So, Robin, why don't you tell us what you got coming up?
Well, it started, I hope, slow down a little bit. I don't know. I just did the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference in April. And then I just did the Spruce Pine Alien Expo in North Carolina on June 8th. So I'm just coming down off of that. And yeah, kind of, I've been abducted on and off and dealt with ETs my whole life. So that was kind of a fun event for me to do. The website that I have, I help people with their encounters and try to work them through it. And, so I am covering all the paranormal stuff from spirits to psychic readings to everything. Right now, business is booming, and I'm working with a lot of people a lot of the time. And then I'm also in the process of moving out of state. So I'm very anxious to get that done. And I'm just kind of all over the place. I'm doing a lot of traveling this year, a lot of traveling. More so, I'm normally a homebody. I never go anywhere. And it seems like I'm gone more than I'm ever around. You never know where I'm going to be. So I've been very blessed. The people that I work with through the business end up becoming like fast friends. And I'm loving that aspect. I literally have the best job on the planet because I can do it around my schedules as well as around their schedule. I'm open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because I work with people in other countries as well as in the United States. And I get to help people. I mean, how does it get better than that? I mean, really, if you can help somebody, there is nothing better than that. And I teach people how to use their abilities, how to use the energy and frequency in their bodies. I try to do as much as I can. If I don't know something, I have no problem saying I don't know it or can't help them with it. But yeah, it just tends to work. So I'm just kind of everywhere right now, working with these 2 or 3 new groups that I've got in various states. So I'm doing a lot of state hopping so that I can go and do that. Really excited to be back out in the woods with them. When I was in South Carolina, obviously I was outside around my property, but the snake situation here is so ungodly bad that it's not safe to go anywhere. And I felt so limited. I can't wait to get out of the state. I will miss the cryptids that I have here, and obviously my children and my grandchildren that are still here, and I'll be driving back a lot. But it's really great to get back out in the field again. I do so much remote work and the mindspeak and in the astral. Our world is actually a matrix. What we see when we look out our window is not what it actually is. It's a matrix, and there are parallel planes, just hundreds and thousands of them. And So I do a lot of work with all of that. And it's nice now to be moving somewhere where I can get back out again. And I'm loving the physical contact. Like the one place I went the first night I went, they just walked right up to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I miss. This is what I'm used to from Michigan. And here, I get that. I do get it. Not with the frequency that I did with Michigan. And they're always looking in the windows, which is great, and I'm watching them walk around the backyard all the time, or my dogs will go out at night and they come right out to play with the dogs. I've never had them hurt any of my animals, never. So, the rule of thumb is when I move anywhere, it's like, these are my babies, just like you have your babies. They use animals from the forest as pets. And I bring that up to them and I'm like, I don't hurt your pets. You don't get to hurt mine. But I'm also very conscious of not letting my dogs chase, bark, and snipe at them. They will take a dog down that's chasing them and barking. And quite honestly, it's like my grandchildren are here for this month. If they were to go outside and a stray dog ran up to them barking and growling, I would take that dog down in a minute. Those are my babies. Those are my kids, And so I can understand that. We did have a situation here one year where in South Carolina, they drop hunting dogs off out on the road and they go into the woods because the hunters don't want to deal with the snakes. And they chase all the deer out of the woods and then they blow them away out on the wood. And it's just terrible. It's barbaric. But if they don't bring anything out, they dump the dogs. They don't come back for them. And they were trained, the Sasquatch kids. And I tried to catch them to get them out of there. And I just couldn't get my hands on these dogs. And they didn't hurt her, but they had pinned one of the small little girls. And they told me, they said, cover your ears. We have to kill it. And I'm like, guys, I don't want you to kill it. And they're like, we don't have a choice. It's hurting our children. Well, what am I supposed to say? I can't, play devil's advocate when that's going on. And they did kill the hound dog. And I felt terrible. I cried because it was awful to hear it when it happened. But they have never hurt my animals. But I don't allow my animals to do that either. Like they might bark at them, but they'll get right in the backyard. And I have a fenced in backyard. And I've let the dogs out in the backyard and had one belly crawl across the backyard with the dogs in it. They don't bother them. I'm not having any issues. I've got feral cats all over here that come here to eat. They don't bother any of the cats either. I have too many pigs. If they were going to eat anything, they'd eat the hogs because they live on wild hogs in a lot of states. They've never bothered my mini pigs. I told them that they were not food, that they were my pets. They were my babies. Never once have they bothered them.
Well, that's good. Robin, thank you so much. Every time you come on, we learn so much. And thank you again for taking the time to be with us. And we look forward to continuing our series with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we highly encourage you to check out Robin's website, paranormal-empowerment.com. Check it out. And so for myself, Daniel Becker, CWR team member in Anchorage, Alaska, for my fellow host, Matt Slater in Quincy, Washington. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, everybody.